Today on Sports Central, we're going over our next team projection of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Tennessee Volunteers, a team that went 3-7 in the 2020 season. Definitely a bit of a disappointment of a year for Tennessee. But how will this team be in 2021, and will there be improvement for the Vols in 2021 is what we're going over here today. We're also going to go over a few players this team will be losing, who they're going to be returning, and also looking at their schedule for the first time this offseason, starting out with the previous 6 games for Tennessee. And this team was definitely, once again, a disappointment last season. I think we all can agree there, whether you're a Tennessee fan or not. This team certainly did not play to the level where many people expect them to. But they lost to Alabama 17-48 at the end of October. They lost to Arkansas 13-24. Lost to Auburn 17-30. Lost to Florida 19-31. That was a pretty tough stretch in through there between, of course, November and December there. Having to play Alabama and Florida there. Of course, Auburn on the road too. Don't forget about that. But they beat Vanderbilt 42-17. Definitely the signature win there of the season. Even though Vanderbilt was definitely a pretty terrible team last season. Lost to Texas A&M that finished out the season as well, 13-42. So obviously definitely a big disappointment of a year for Tennessee, but this team does have potential going into 2021. That's also why I'm doing this video, is just to kind of show you guys. I think Tennessee does have potential next year. It's just a matter of whether or not this team can stay consistent and win the games that they're supposed to. Like if you look at last season, I mean, Arkansas, that was a winnable game there. They just could not pull it out in the end. So this team, I think, just has to make sure you get those wins that you're supposed to. And if you do so, I mean, we could see a good season out of Tennessee. But they were 2-3 in their first 5 games, kind of fell off in the last 5 games with a 1-4 record. As for your roster preview, of course, you got Jarrett Garantano. He is transferring away from Tennessee, so he will not be with this team next season, obviously. And it looks like Harrison Bailey will be your quarterback for next season. Should be interesting to see how he does. He had a pretty promising start last season when he did play. I mean, he put up 570 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, so he did throw a couple interceptions, but I mean, he put up a 71% completion rate, which obviously he only threw 68 times last season, but I mean, whenever you can get up in the 70s for the completion rate, no matter how much you play, I mean, that's definitely something to watch out for with Harrison Bailey. And who knows, I mean, Jarrett Garantano may have seen how fast Harrison Bailey was developing and decided to make a move. I mean, that could definitely be the case too. We saw that with, I mean, for example, with Indiana, Michael Penix, of course, was on the rise, and that caused Peyton Ramsey to transfer away. So who knows, that could be the situation, and we all know where Michael Penix got to for Indiana. So, but for Harrison Bailey here, I mean, he's definitely a quarterback that hasn't played a whole lot, but I think he's got some potential going into next season. Watch out for him. Eric Gray's also transferring away. We were actually seeing several players transfer away from this program. Tyler Chandler is also going away. So Eric Gray and Tyler Chandler, both running backs, are not going to be with Tennessee next season. Eric Gray did put up just over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. Not a bad season for him. Meanwhile, Tyler Chandler put up just over 560 yards and 4 touchdowns. So both running backs, it's tough seeing both of them go. I think if Tennessee was able to return both of them, like this team genuinely would have a chance to make it pretty high up, maybe 7 to 9 wins next season. But the running back core is definitely going to hurt quite a bit at the start of next season, especially. It's going to be quite an adjustment for this team. But Josh Palmer, he won't be with this team next season. He was the top wide receiver, and that's really where I'm concerned for Tennessee here, is in the skilled players position. I mean, if you look at the running back core once again, but also Josh Palmer, last season he put up just over 470 yards, 4 touchdowns as well. All 3 of those players were definitely big impacts for this Tennessee team last season. But Velus Jones is coming back to the team next season, second wide receiver for this team. Looking at him last year, he put up some pretty good stats. I mean, if you look at him all around, I mean, if you look at Velus Jones, he's definitely going to have quite a workload going into next season. He put up 300 yards last year, so not a whole lot, but and also 3 touchdowns, but he'll probably be the top wide receiver, I'd assume, for Tennessee next season. Jalen Hyatt's also coming back. He put up just right around the same stats that Velus Jones did, with 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. So both of them are definitely going to be receivers to watch out for. As for the defensive line, you lose 1 on there, 1 in the secondary. This defense is hardly losing anyone. So defense looks great going into next season. That was a huge, that was definitely very detrimental to this team last season, was the defense. So yeah, this defense returning as much as they are, like the defensive side looks pretty good, but for the offensive side, that's really where we see a lot of question marks. Based off of this team in general, though, just considering like how much they're losing on the offensive side, if this offense plays well, this team will play well in general. I think this team has got a ton of potential, especially if this team plays well offensively. Watch out for them there. Chances of a bowl season in 2021, I'd say is pretty good for Tennessee. This team, I think, has got potential definitely to make a run at it. They're going to be close to that 6-win barrier, I think, for next season. I mean, especially considering this team is sort of in a rebuilding phase right now. But there's potential for this team. Your schedule is not that difficult. Like, if you look at your non-conference games, Bowling Green was probably the worst team in the FBS last season. Tennessee Tech is an FCS. And Pittsburgh is also a very beatable team. So you also got South Alabama. Don't forget about them. So this team does have a pretty easy schedule. Probably one of the easier schedules, I'd say, or favorable schedules in the SEC. But as for the first half here, you got Bowling Green. That's obviously a win. They were a terrible team. They should be FCS if it were up to me. Then you got Pittsburgh, of course. I'm going to keep that as a yellow game for now, but I'm definitely favoring Tennessee right now, just based off of where Tennessee is. Schedule-wise, this team does have a lot more experience in tough games than Pittsburgh does. But if you look at it otherwise, I mean, Tennessee Tech, that's also a win. Florida on the road is going to be a tough one. I'm going to keep it as a close one for now. Missouri is also going to be close. South Carolina, I probably favor the Vols in right now, but I'm also going to keep that as a close game. So in your first 6 games, I definitely think Tennessee should get 3 to 4 wins out of these first 6. If you start off the season 4-2, that puts you in a really good position, especially for the second half of the season. I mean, if you look at the second half here, that's definitely where you got some of your tougher games. You got Alabama on the road on October 23rd. Good thing is you got that game before a bye week, so you're not going to have too much of a hangover going past that Alabama game, which, I mean, if we're being totally honest, having to play Alabama in Tuscaloosa, you are going to lose that game because, I mean, Alabama is just too good of a team right now. But Kentucky, that's also going to be a close one. Ole Miss is close. Georgia, I'm going to keep that as a loss as well. I think Georgia is too good of a team going into next year. I mean, they got JT Daniels. That Georgia team will definitely be a big playoff contender next season. Watch out for them. If you look at Florida, Florida I'd say is more likely of a win than Georgia next season, mainly because, Florida's losing a lot more than Georgia's for one. And if you look at both teams, I think Georgia will somewhat be in the same position that Florida was last year. Florida was better than Georgia last year in the SEC East. But I'm actually favoring Georgia to win that division this season just because, once again, JT Daniels, and if that team is healthy, they can be definitely a big threat, I think, in the SEC. But South Alabama and Vanderbilt will both be wins as well. So you got 4 guaranteed wins next season with Bowling Green, Tennessee Tech, and then South Alabama, Vanderbilt. And otherwise, I think this team should make it to a bowl game. This team, there is still a chance that they won't, but I'd say it's more likely than not that we'll see Tennessee in a bowl game next season. Your ceiling will be 8-4, which I consider putting that up to 9-3, but that would create quite a wide range there. So 8-4 is going to be your ceiling. That's basically the top of where you could be next year, which, once again, considering this team is sort of in a rebuilding phase, and also the transfers that we saw out of this team this season so far, or this offseason so far, this team, I think your projection will be 6-6, which 6-6 seems pretty low. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be saying, oh, this team is totally going to go 7 to 9 wins. Just being totally honest with you guys, considering how tough the SEC is, 6-6 would be a good record for Tennessee next season, I think. If you can make it to a bowl game, that would be a successful season, especially if you can win that bowl game. But your floor is going to be 8-4. That's going to be as low as I think you can get. So I think for sure this team should have a good chance of making it to a bowl game, but there's always that possibility that you're a win or 2 short in the case that you're on the wrong side for a few games. But if this team, I got 4 guaranteed wins up here. You just need 2 more wins out of those last 8 games, which I definitely think is very possible for this team. Like, even if you could beat Pittsburgh and South Carolina, that already gets you up to 6 wins. So, this team has definitely got a lot of potential, but it's going to be a fun team to watch out for next season. There's a lot of unpredictability here. And with that being said, that wraps it up for today. Let me know your thoughts and comments below on Tennessee. And yeah, your record predictions and all of that down in the comments. I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys all later.